les soldats. On veut que toutes les guerres planétaires pourraient ensuite avoir lieu.
So I wanted you to listen to that so that you could hear the deliberate note of insanity in Artaud's voice and so that your skin could crawl with it. Here's the question. Is this kind of expressive madness too little in the face of what it denounces, namely the technological insanity of an attempt to reproduce an entire national population and to make them into an instrument of war? That's an artistic question, and it's what Artaud wanted to take to the ears of the media public. If we continue to look at his poem, maybe this time without the soundtrack, you'll see that he frames the matter explicitly in terms of production and consumption, and in terms of the circular relationship between the two, which was the great discovery of Keynesian economics in the post-war period. Artaud actually anticipates much of 1960s cultural critique by portraying the cycle of production and consumption as a military strategy that is explicitly conceived to overwhelm human desire. Factories and battleships on the one hand, on the other, synthetic products to satiety, as he says. What's amazing in this poem, however, is that Artaud goes one step further than the denunciation of this circular relation between production and consumption. He takes the whole question into the realm of the unthinkable, as though he were trying to sound out the depths of the social unconscious of machine society. He does it through the motif of the confiscation of the child's sperm and the theme of artificial insemination. What's at stake here is biopower, that is to say, the forms and procedures of administrative control over human health and reproduction, which Foucault, of course, dates back to the 18th century, but which from the mid-1930s on were increasingly subordinated to the centralized industrial planning of state capitalism. The Allied occupations, the Marshall Plan, European Reconstruction, Keynesian debt financing, and the emergence of a welfare state out of a total mobilization for war were the biopolitical realities that Artaud could directly see or glimpse in the very near future. Now, the fact of deliberately deployed biopower, the necessarily gigantic scale on which it is exercised, and the realization that one's own existence is enmeshed within it will always come as a shock and a scandal whenever its operations are revealed. Artaud reveals the operations of biopower in the poem, and he calls it the judgment of God. That's why the work is so stunning and powerful, even 60 years after it was first written and recorded. But he goes one step further with his insistence on the way that the new mass production society banishes nature and artificializes the entire environment. What he's grasping for, I think, is a notion of artificial life, an image of the generation of new and alien beings, which the corporate state is only now beginning to achieve in reality with its programs for drone intelligence and recombinant DNA. These were things that Artaud could only intuit at the time. But they are essential dreams and inherent nightmares of industrial capitalism, as the Frankenstein myth and all its monstrous offspring can tell us. To what do these dreams and nightmares correspond? Where can we locate them in social reality and in the social unconscious of the 1940s? Before moving on to look at the machine logic of production and consumption, which is known as circular causality or cybernetics, I want to look for some clues to the meaning of Artaud's poem in the work of an amazing Turkish artist, Yüksel Arslan, and in a text by Marx from the Grundrisse on machines. In the section of the Grundrisse on fixed capital and the development of the productive forces of society, Marx begins by quoting the definition of the factory supplied by his favorite management theorist, a Scottish professor named Andrew Ure. Ure writes this: factory signifies the cooperation of several classes of workers, adults and non-adults, watching attentively and assiduously over a system of productive mechanisms continually kept in action by a central force. In its most rigorous sense, this term conveys the idea of a vast automaton composed of numerous mechanical and intellectual organs operating in concert and without interruption towards one and the same aim, all these organs being subordinated to a motive force which moves itself. So what's central in this definition is the subordination of both the mechanical and the intellectual organs to the totality of the larger self-towered automaton which integrates all its parts into a whole. Marx takes some care to distinguish this integrated automaton that for him is the factory from what he calls the former means of labor, that is the traditional tool or instrument, which in an earlier phase was, he says, simply adopted by capital and included in its realization processes. What concerns him is rather the integral machine, the machine system. And now I quote from the Grundrisse: once adopted into the production process of capital, the means of labor passes through different metamorphoses whose culmination is the machine, or rather an automatic system of machinery set into motion by an automaton, a moving power that moves itself. This automaton consisting of numerous mechanical and intellectual organs so that the workers themselves are cast merely as its conscious linkages. In the machine, and even more in machinery as an automatic system, the use value, i.e. the material quality of the means of labor, is transformed into an existence adequate to fixed capital and to capital as such. And the form in which it was adopted into the production process of capital, the direct means of labor, is superseded by a form posited by capital itself and corresponding to it. So he's saying that when the worker becomes a part of this self-moving apparatus, which is the factory, the earlier forms of the worker's labor and the worker's, crucially the worker's relationship to the tool, are completely changed, because now the means of labor have been posited by capital in the terms of capital. So it's a completely different relationship, and one that is going to subordinate the worker to the machine. Marx continues saying, in no way does the machine appear as the individual worker's means of labor. Its distinguishing characteristic is not in the least, as with the means of labor, to transmit the worker's activity to the object. This activity, rather, is posited in such a way that it merely transmits the machine's work, the machine's action, onto the raw material, supervises it and guards it against interruptions. Not as with the instrument, which the worker animates and makes into his organ and his skill and strength, and whose handling, therefore, depends on his virtuosity. Rather, it is the machine which possesses skill and strength in place of the worker. It is the machine which is itself the virtuoso, with a soul of its own and the mechanical laws acting through it. And it consumes coal, oil, etc., just as the worker consumes food to keep up its perpetual motion. The worker's activity, reduced to a mere abstraction of activity, is determined and regulated on all sides by the movement of the machinery and not the opposite. The science which compels the inanimate limbs of machinery by their construction to act purposefully as an automaton does not exist in the worker's consciousness, but rather acts through the machine, acts upon him through the machine as an alien power, the power of the machine itself. Marx goes on to speak of the machine as a mighty organism, a social brain counterposed to the insignificant capacities of the individual worker, who is absorbed into the gears and wheels as a mere moment of the realization processes of capital. The machine is the virtuoso, he says specifically. When you conceive the alien power of the machine in this way, and when you see the worker, as Yüksel Arslan did in his series on Capital, as a pure hand bereft of eyes and tongue and intelligence, indeed as a superabundance of hands offering multiple junctions to keep pace with the machine.